to the cloud. All right. Welcome to Unlocking Manhood Podcast number 1. We're with Gabe West. We're going to be talking about setting a life of intention. And this is something that I've been on a journey with Gabe for several years. And I see a lot of young people and a lot of old people, especially men, not living out a life of intention, which is easy to do with all the distractions we have in our world. I'm your host, Thomas Pfanner, the founder of Unlocking Manhood. Our mission is to provide clarity and skills to help men develop to be the best men that they can be for themselves and for their community. So Gabe, introduce and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. And I'm really excited to talk about this subject because it's one that I'm passionate about. As you've already mentioned, you and I have been on this journey together for several years. But a little bit about my background. So I was a personal trainer for 9 years, and I worked in all aspects of the fitness industry you could possibly imagine. I worked in the big Globo gym type setting all the way to the small boutique gym. I owned a couple of gyms myself, and even taught at the college level in an exercise science program. So that was kind of like as far as my real passion revolved around fitness, which was, as far as living an intentional life goes, something that I was able to find a lot of discipline within that practice on a regular basis. And it was a good Kickstarter, I guess, for personal development overall. Now, these days, I'm doing some tugboating and shifted gears a little bit there, but still setting goals on a consistent basis, which, I mean, you and I haven't missed a Monday, and I don't know how many years it's been now, but we haven't missed since we started.
Yeah, so to fill you all in on what Gabe and I are talking about, we met at a fitness workshop almost 4 years ago. I think it was 2017, early October.
Yep.
And I connected with Gabe and I said, hey man, how do you feel about setting some goals each week and holding each other accountable to getting them done? And he says, that sounds really scary, but yes.
Yeah. Yep.
And so, we took the jump, and it's been really life-changing because each week we look at different gardens of our life. It could be our relationships. It could be our fitness. It could be our finances. It could be a business or personal development. And we say, all right, this week, this is the one thing I want to get done in this area. And if you multiply that by 52 weeks in a year, it's amazing how often we get to the end of the week. It's like, all right, I got to get 2 of these goals done that I haven't done yet. And I crush and grind. And I'm sure Gabe has a similar experience of like pushing to get it done for that deadline, because I know I'm going to meet with Gabe and I want to have a good report to give him when we meet up, and having that little bit of pressure to do something that's not for anybody else other than yourself. And that's like, grown up and being a teacher myself, I just see that so often as we get in the habit of just doing things for other people and not doing things for ourselves.
Right. So, that's so huge. Like the accountability portion of what you and I do is like the real key to success. And I think it's key to success in a lot of different areas, but just relating it to the fitness industry, right? The fitness industry is kind of what brought us together initially, but you know as well as I do, whether you're working with a student or whether you're working with a client, it's the accountability portion is huge for anyone to accomplish anything. Because if they don't have anyone to be held accountable to, it's pretty easy to just like, I'll put that off till later. And, that's why I'll get around to it eventually. And we all have those things that we'll eventually get around to, right? And it's pretty interesting, though, how much faster you get things done when you have to show up consistently and actually give a report saying, yes, I either got it done or no, I didn't. And there's no in between. It's a yes or a no. There's no gray area. It's either you did it or you didn't. And yeah, it's a fast track. I think it's a fast track to success. I believe it to be so.
Yeah. So tell us what are some areas that you've seen growth in within your life since we've been doing this? What are some maybe a garden or two that's taken off and shown some bloom?
Sure. One of the biggest one is relationships, because when you and I very first met was when I was very first starting to talk with this girl who is now my wife. And it's been interesting just over the course of the years how that has blossomed, because there were very intentional, sometimes conversations that I wanted to have. Some of them were more challenging than others, or maybe setting these intentions to just have regular date nights. And these things seem so simple, and really they are simple, but they're not always easy to execute, because it does take some discipline, some level of planning ahead in order to, make this stuff happen. And so that would be the biggest one, because like I said, I went from being a single guy from the time you know me to being happily married, and you even officiated the wedding, which was an amazing experience. So that would
Wow.
probably be the biggest one. And then I would say the second one would be in professional development. And that one, so much about that story and what a crazy ride that's been. Went from being a uh, broke personal trainer that was pulling in maybe like $2,000 to $2,500 a month, just scraping by, to opening a gym in Walla Walla that was pulling in 10K a month. And then, like I said, shifting gears to now working in the tugboat industry, which I don't think either of us really saw that coming, but it turns out it's something I really love and enjoy doing. So those would be the two biggest areas that I would say that I have seen improvement in, would be in professional development and as well as my personal relationships. And for that, I am grateful.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
the cool thing is, like, it's not complicated. The system that Gabe and I are talking about, and there are a lot of people that pay a lot of money to be parts of groups, and I actually am part of some cool organizations that add some pieces of accountability, but also some extra value and resources and connections. But it's really the hardest thing is to find other men who are invested in adding to themselves and elevating themselves to a new level. It's amazing how many people I've spoken to about this before I found Gabe. They're like, yeah, well, I'm really busy with different things. I don't think I could, meet each week to set goals. And you get this cliche.
Yep.
So, like, goal setting, that's like rah stuff you do at the beginning of the year, and it's really, if you turn it into a habit of not just setting the goal, but executing, it's absolutely, not only is it life-changing week to week to get those things done, but the relationships you build and the depth of life, like, there are a lot of deep things that come up week to week, and having somebody to check in with about hard things that are going on in your job or your marriage or whatever it is, having a soundboard to vent those things out and talk it out and come up with solutions if there needs to be one, that's been maybe one of the biggest things that have benefited me. But Gabe, and I'm thinking of some things as well, but like, what would you suggest somebody that's listening to this, like, okay, yeah, I want to start setting goals each week?
Yeah. The first thing that I would suggest is get crystal clear on what areas you are trying to improve upon in your life. And once you are crystal clear on what areas it is you're looking to improve upon, go ahead and list those out. Like, you and I have an Excel sheet, and Thomas is really like the mastermind behind the creation of this Excel sheet. But we have these different columns that we we're both in such alignment with the goals that we're pursuing that the columns just make sense for both of us. And Thomas mentioned these things earlier, but the things really come down to this. It comes down to, like, if the relationships are important to you, if the finances are important to you, if your health is important to you, which all should probably be pretty big goals that we should all be striving to improve upon. Get crystal clear on what those things are, and then reverse engineer it. Like, if you have a really big goal you're looking to achieve, like, obviously I really liked this girl that I met when we first started chatting, end goal being marriage. Probably don't want to start with that, right? But there are things we could do along the way there to progress that. And really, when the other thing that I would say is that when you are setting big goals, if you do have a big goal in mind, like ask yourself, what is the one thing you can get done this week that is going to take you one step closer to achieving that goal? Because if you know what that one thing is that needs to be done, that one big important thing, as long as you get that done in the area you're looking to improve upon, you are officially closer than you were. And if you were to look at our sheet, if you were to look through our Excel sheet, it looks boring. It's that's the funniest part about it, is a lot of these big goals came to fruition, including the opening of a business, a couple of businesses. You've opened one, I opened one. That all came from very apparently, if you were to just look at it, kind of mundane looking goals, but it really is the little daily steps that, or weekly steps in this case even, that take you from where you currently stand to where you want to be over the course of time. And as long as you stay consistent, you're golden. The other thing I would say too is when you're thinking about who it is you're looking for accountability, find the most rock solid person in your network that you can possibly find. The person who never flakes, the person who never bails. Because if you have someone who is likely to make excuses and flake, like, you know, I have some friends who I absolutely love dearly, but I would not set goals with. Because they would be the type where I'm busy, and then they wouldn't show up. But with you, we haven't missed a Monday in however many years we've been doing this, like what, 4 years now?
Yep.
And that's the type of consistency that's going to allow you to achieve these things over time. You can't do it by being inconsistent.
Yeah, that's huge. The consistency is absolutely giant, because like some of these goals, just to give some examples that Gabe's talking about, like you're starting an LLC, you know, going on the Secretary of State website and opening an LLC, finding if the name that is available that you need to is there, and paying your $100 fee. Like that's not really a fun activity. I mean, maybe,
Right.
but like
Yeah.
getting those things done, like getting your oil changed in your car, you know, things like this that get away from us, but really we're the ones that are accountable for as men, especially if you have a family, or if if you're on your own for the first time. I know some of our listeners are going to be young men that are maybe just experiencing being responsible for themselves and don't have extra family around to back them up. Nobody's looking out to make sure you top up your wiper fluid, or
Yeah. Right.
whatever it is. You got to like go through and check it out, or make sure you're, for some people it might be running a load of laundry, but you get in, you start doing those little habits like cleaning up and making sure everything's sound. Then you get into some of our spiritual stuff of like meditation and reflection. And okay, what type of business do I want to create, and what's my purpose in the world? And you can't do that when your life's cluttered with things that are on your to-do list that are, small but important, that can kind of consume our mind and consume our energy. We've got to that.
For sure. And it really is, like you say, it really is just those small things that add up. And the funny thing about it is that if you start with these small habits, like you're saying, the habits ultimately make their way off the list because they become habits. They're no longer goals to accomplish, right? And that's what's happened over the course of time. I think when you and I first started, we were setting like 1 to 3 goals a week or something like that. And now we're setting like 7 or 8 a week. And it's just because some of the habits we formed over time no longer needed to make the list, because they were just that. They were habits. Once you form a habit, it's no longer a goal. You've achieved that. So then it's time to level up again and challenge yourself again. Okay, now what's this next habit? And that's how the evolution takes place over the course of time. And it really is something it could be something as simple as, I'll use this as an example. I, for the longest time, was trying to get in the habit of journaling, and I had to start out with journaling 1 time a week, and I worked my way up to 3 times a week. I'm now up to 4 times a week. And just as of like the last couple of weeks, now in that column for spiritual development, I obviously do my journaling, I do my reflection, but now I'm listening to trying to form this habit of listening to some sort of podcast on Stoicism, because I really love Stoicism. And if I could find something that maybe I hadn't considered in my own reflections, it also gives me almost a new journal prompt, right? Not only can I reflect upon what's already going on in my life, I can use what's going on inside of this podcast as a prompt to maybe further develop myself. And it started as trying to journal 1 time a week, and here we are, 4 times a week, got that on lock, no problem. But now I need to do something else to push it a little further.
That's huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
And having those habits of reflection can really just propel you into, like you're talking about, finding your purpose and finding the things that bring you joy. And so if you have joy in your life, you're going to find yourself working harder, working smarter, and the money's going to follow if that's what you're after. The relationships with your friends are going to improve. Your relationships with women is going to improve. Yeah. It's a cascading thing. And what I love about what you're diving into deeper with that journaling and self-reflection is, as men, first and foremost, we have to be responsible for the direction of our own life. And I think and I've mentioned this before, but it's so easy to get pulled off of direction by our boss or friends that have other ideas or plans, and you just kind of jump in and go for the ride. But to set an intention of, this is what I want to do with this week. This is what I want to do with this month. This is what I want to do with this year. This is what I want to do with my life. It takes a lot of work and a lot of discipline, because sometimes, I have a 13-year-old son, and I can tell you, if I can get him to figure out what he wants to do for the day, that is like huge win. You just gotta keep expanding out how far out you are able to set a goal. That would be my suggestion to anybody that's listening, is start with a day if you need to, and move it out to a week. A week is really nice because you could throw some things in there that are a little bit more ambitious. And often I'll be going through the week and be like, have a little lull, be like, okay, I know I'm feeling kind of a fog, but like, what did I say I needed to get done? And I go back to that list and I see it, boom, I'm putting this in because I've got an hour to get whatever done. Right. Which I wouldn't have thought of that in the moment, because you're fogged, you're stressed. If you've got kids, they're making noise, they're crying.
Right.
Can make lunches. You've got to get to work. You've got other people asking you 1,000 different things, and having that time in quiet to know what your intention is absolutely huge.
I think it's massive. It's just gives you the opportunity to really get clarity on what's important. Because you'll find, if you are reflecting on a regular basis, there are going to be certain themes that pop up continuously. And those themes are typically things that are one of two things. They're either one, they're extremely important to you, or two, you'll find them to be distractions in the way of what's actually important to you. But you'll get clear on that the more time you spend reflecting. It doesn't have to be a ton of time spent in reflection either. When I sit down to journal, I typically don't journal for more than 10 minutes. But it's just for me, it's just enough to get a brain dump, see what's going on, check in with how I'm feeling, with what I'm feeling, and then be able to move on from there. One of the biggest, one of the best books I ever read for me personally, because I used to be the person who had a million ideas, and I still do this, and it's something that's it's always a work in progress for me, but I always have a million ideas in my head. And if I could just narrow my focus down to one thing and direct all of my energy towards that, whatever that one thing is. And in the time that I read this book, the name of the book is actually The One Thing, and the name of the author is slipping my mind. But I remember reading this book, and at the time I was working in the fitness industry and had all these ideas for online coaching. I was wondering if I was going to do independent contracting out of the gym that already existed, was wondering whether or not I was going to open a gym. And once I made up my mind and just decided, I am going to open a gym. And that was it. And that was the only thing I was going to focus on. I stopped putting so much time into social media because I decided it was going to be a brick and mortar gym. And I hired a coach. This coach helped me with lead generation and client acquisition. We got things underway, and within 7 days, had made 20 sales at, $400 a pop. So you do the math on that. That's a pretty good 7 days for when you're first starting a business. And it's just interesting what can happen though, and what can happen so quickly if you do get clarity on whatever it is that's important to you. So that's why I'm a fan of reflection. And without reflection, I mean, the whole conversation we're having today is about living intentionally. It's hard to truly be intentional if you don't spend time in reflection. And I like to think of it this way, action without intention is just busy work, but action with intention is productivity, and there is a difference. And so if you can act with intention, you're productive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the busy work can really come in play. I like what you're talking about, finding that intention. And like, once you're on purpose and you know what that one thing is, so I looked it up. The author is Gary Keller.
Thank you. Yes.
And there's a cool, a cool section in that book that I remember where he says, what's the one thing I can do this year that will propel my life to meet that goal? And then he breaks it down. What's the one thing I can do this quarter? What's the one thing I can do this month, this week, this day, this hour, all the way down? And he goes through, like, because I listen to audiobooks, so I hear it going all the way down. He reads through the whole thing. What's the one thing I can do this minute to move myself towards whatever it is? And it can be like, when you break it down, it's simple, but it's easy to get it as kind of overwhelming. So if you're just looking to get into this, don't get overwhelmed. Like, the one thing is the perfect name for that book, or setting goals. Because I would encourage, if you haven't done like a weekly goal thing, set like one goal and figure out which garden in your life needs the most work, and just start in that one. Okay. Yeah. I need to get my fitness in check. I need to get my finances in check. And if there's something that's really not good, like if there's somewhere you're really struggling with, it's amazing how a little bit of work can go a long, long way. And if let's say finances are struggling, if you improve that finance area, all the other gardens are actually going to start to elevate as well, because you're not going to be as stressed. Your health's going to be better. Your relationships are going to be better, and so on. So like, figure out what's that one thing. What is that one garden, and what's that one goal within that garden that's going to make the biggest difference in your life?
So you're spot on there, man. And it's so interesting because a lot of times we do put something off. Like, it's like usually a painful area, or an area we know we're struggling in. So we don't really want to go attack it because we're just like, it gives me stress or whatever. And finances are a huge source of stress for a lot of people, whether it be credit card debt or setting up a retirement account or whatever it is, life insurance policy. It could be a lot of things, right? But I mean, all these things take time, effort, and they're usually not super fun to get in check. But just think about like how much time you spend worrying about that area currently, and how that's pulling you away from being your most productive self. Like, if you just leave that lie where it is, you're going to continue to have this distraction going on, like this, like, it's kind of like voice in the back of your head. It's like, hey, you should probably get your finances in check, since you've been in debt for the last however many years, and your interest on this credit card's only going to keep climbing if you don't pay that shit off. Well, this is something that I don't know, man. It's so funny because it's like, now that you and I have been holding each other accountable, it's like I can't unsee those areas that I'm struggling in, and rather than running from them, I've created this new habit of running at them, and because of that, I just feel more at ease in general. I don't feel like I have as much of these different things, these different stressors, I guess, pulling me in different directions, because I've built a solid foundation now. And now the foundation's built, it's like, well, cool. Which area do we want to grow in next? And it's kind of a fun deal to watch unfold.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's cool being able to see you grow as a man and knock out these areas and have competency in your skill set between being able to set up Facebook ads, like a huge skill. Like it's really, I see it now. It's like, it's like a life skill because you could apply it to whatever you wanted. Ability to manage your, your relationship with your now wife, taking care of your fitness. You still have great fitness when we started meeting. You still have great fitness, but just the different journeys and struggles within each of those areas, and to see your growth has been really cool.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun to dive into this, and I just can't say enough how grateful I am that you approached me that day. And I think something that I really want to drive home inside of, I guess, as we're talking about this whole goal setting thing that you and I do, is that when Thomas approached me, keep in mind, this was like a 2-day workshop. So Thomas had the courage to approach me after having only spent a couple of days around me, and to be able to ask me to do something like this, which is incredible, really, like when you think about that, right? Thomas, for whatever reason, felt like I was going to be a good candidate for this, and it made me so uncomfortable in the best way when he asked me. Like, it was just like he came up and he asked, and I remember I had all these butterflies in my stomach, and I think, like Thomas said, I said out loud, I'm like, that makes me really uncomfortable, but yeah, let's do it. Because ultimately I knew that uncomfortable feeling that I was feeling was going to be something that needed to be addressed. I didn't know exactly how I was going to address it, but it seemed like at least getting on a phone call every week would be a good start. And man, it's pretty cool to see that we went from being complete strangers at a workshop to having held each other accountable, dove in depth. We now know a lot about each other's personal lives. And like I said before, you officiated our wedding. And so now it's like I've got a really deep friendship out of this too. And it's incredible how your relationships all around will develop as a result of doing something like this.
Yeah. And I think it's a great anecdotal story. Anytime if you're interested in jumping into something like this, whether it's on your own with a friend, we have at Unlocked Manhood, we have some programs that can help with this, especially for fathers and young men. Anytime you take this leap, it's not going to be that like comfortable, fun sale, or like sales, not even a good word, like commitment, investment. It's going to feel like, oh, I'm going to have to do some work. And I really got to like unearth some of the areas of my life that I'm struggling with. It's not comfortable, but there's a lot of growth on the other side of that. And I encourage you to just know going into it that there's going to be part of you that says, no, let's stay home. No, let's stay on the sidelines. No, that's not for us. And if you want to be that man that is going to be a force in the world and bringing positive things into your life and positive things into your family's life and the life of your community, it's going to take getting through some of that uncomfortable. It kind of reminds me of like getting into a wrestling tournament. I have a tournament coming up in a little bit, and somebody asked me like, "Oh, do you enjoy the wrestling tournaments?" I'm like, no. But it makes me better at wrestling.
Yeah.
And I grow as a person. So
and having wrestled through high school, it's so funny. I talk about that with my friends now who like wrestled with me through high school. And there's a couple of them that were like, yeah, like, so did you have fun with wrestling? And we're like, no, like the season was miserable. Like it was just like, it was really long, hard practices, and we ran a lot and we conditioned a lot and we drilled really hard. And then like The reward at the end was getting your hand raised at the end of a match.
Yep.
But it was crazy how good that felt because you put all this work into it and you got to see the payoff at the end. And I think that's just like a lot of pretty much anything you want that's worth pursuing in the world is going to take some level of discomfort. And as long as you're willing to face it head on and most importantly, stay consistent, there's payoff to be had at the other side.
Right on. I love that.
Yeah.
I am going to end us with that. What a fantastic first podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you want to find out more about us, we have a Unlocking Manhood YouTube channel. We have other videos other than just our podcasts on there to help you level up in the game of life. We have Instagram, Unlocking Manhood. And then if you want to reach me directly, Thomas Pfanner, I have an Instagram, and then email is coachfanner@gmail.com. If you want to reach out to Gabe, I'll give him a chance to have some airtime to give his contact for y'all.
Sure. So you could connect with us on Instagram at West_family_farm. What we're doing over there is just documenting our journey to making our homestead dreams a reality. And we're doing so in kind of a comedic fashion. So we're having a lot of fun with that right now. That is kind of the next area that we'll tend to be focusing on. And I look forward to connecting with you guys there. Thanks for having me on, Thomas.
Absolutely. Take care, y'all.
Yep. See ya.
Bye.